Hi, I'm Will. Okay, maybe I'm not Will. But this is What's Leaving and What's Left, a podcast about divorce. Why what's leaving and what's left? Well, maybe you're leaving and maybe you're left. Which is to say, this is a show about divorce. It isn't a how-to guide. It definitely isn't a substitute for legal representation or therapy, although we will plead with you, please look into both those things. It might be good to mention here that there's nothing here to be construed as legal or medical advice. What's leaving and what's left is real divorce stories of real people. The idea came to me when I realized how many men I knew were going through divorces that would never look for help as they deal with divorce, or that when help was offered, they would never accept it. And yet when they found themselves in a divorce, they wanted to talk to me about it. Interestingly enough, but maybe not surprisingly, their stories, and maybe yours, have a lot in common with each other. And while I can't claim to be an expert on divorce, relationships, psychology, anything, I think finding familiarity and common ground in some of these stories might be soothing and somewhat therapeutic. And maybe, at the very least, we can provide a parasocial group for people having trouble finding, or people having trouble even beginning to look for, help. Welcome back to another episode of What's Leaving and What's Left. I am Will, and I don't think I told you that that's my name on this episode. But today we're joined with an old friend of Will's, today we are joined with Rich. Rich, how are you doing?
Good, Will. Thanks for having me today.
Great. Rich, can you tell me a little bit of demographic information? Are you currently divorced? What phase are you in there?
Legally separated.
Mm-hmm.
Working on the divorce.
Since when?
About a year and a half now.
Okay. Wow. Slow moving gears of justice. I guess the divorce process is not a fast one, or are you just...
What's interesting is, there's been ample opportunity, and to be honest, I'm sure you could take care of it tomorrow if you had the will and the money.
Mm-hmm.
But I think part of it is there's never going to be a right time.
Sure.
And, the initial step of being asked to be divorced and the initial step of doing all the paperwork. And, I'd say this for men and women out there, there's a lot of opportunities in life, and especially with divorce, where you could just throw money at the problem. Meaning, you could hire lawyers, hire mediators.
You haven't done any of that?
No.
Oh, wow.
Did the heavy lifting. I'm a big DIY guy myself, so an opportunity to do things myself, and that made it that much more real. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more real when you have to meet up with your ex at the courthouse, because that makes it that much more real. It's not some...
I want to get into that experience.
Yeah.
I want to... So you blessed us by being completely oblivious to the format of the show.
Some would call it lazy.
Not me.
But not me. I'm going to reframe that and say I actually wanted to come in as a blank slate. It was,
That's right.
It was actually very
This is
premeditated.
intentional. We were actually really smart and over-prepared if you think about it.
Yes.
What
You're welcome.
I do, I like to start with your story in the middle, where every good story starts. Okay. Now, what I mean by the middle is, it sounded like your ex asked you for a divorce. Can you walk me through that conversation where you proposed the idea? The idea was just proposed mutually. What was that like? Walk us through that scenario.
There's a ton of things that lead up to a divorce. And if you're being honest with yourself, there's, as Louis C.K. said, there's no such thing as like a good marriage ending in divorce, right? It's not like, oh, they were so happy. What happened? Of course, there's going to be good and bad days. Outwardly with social media, people like to portray the best possible version of themselves and so on and so forth. But for me, I'm someone that gets lost in their work, and I made the horrible mistake of thinking I could fix everything by working harder and working more.
Working your job harder, or
working
okay.
my job, my profession harder, and working more. And really, more was less of me and less participation. And so, also that was a way for me to be competent in my life. It's like, well, if I'm not the best dad or I'm not the best husband, at least I can be the best lawyer or whatever I am.
It was another place to get that validation.
Exactly. And I knew at least I had total control there, right? Or it's like, well, I'm gonna give what I get and get what I give, and I can just really lean into this. But at the same time, you're just retreating. You're retreating from these other obligations.
Well, so drop me in. Like, so this was going on in the lead up, and then you said,
Yeah, and it was almost like a breakup in terms of a casual breakup, and maybe you'd ask your partner to meet you in a public space for dinner or at a coffee shop, and
well, I'm getting triggered.
Yeah, so we met in a neutral space, and within a minute, I want a divorce was uttered by my partner. And
did you see this coming?
Like I did not, but with the ability of retrospect and hindsight, it's like, of course things weren't going well. But did I think it was going to end? Absolutely not. But again, it was I think our values were so far apart by that time.
Dive into that. Like, how were your values different? Did they become different?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's something that we don't talk enough about in life is mathematics, and so it's like the simple mathematics of
listeners just gradually turning volume down.
When you were 0 years old, how are you? You're a little baby shitting yourself, right? And then you're 15 years old. What are you doing? Right? You're a sophomore in high school,
shitting yourself.
When you're 30 years old, what are you doing? You're shitting yourself because you can't pay your mortgage. So aside from shitting yourself, you're a different person.
Yes, 100%.
Within those 15 years. So 15 years of marriage.
Is that how long it was?
Yes. 15 years of marriage, you're a different person, and all the things that you were, or you probably still are, but there's no more compromise,
Okay.
And I think for myself, I can't say for the other person, but even for myself, it's like, okay, part of our obligations aren't being met. I'm going to meet them elsewhere, whether it be time spent, whether it be validation, as you said, like wanting to feel that at least I'm right somewhere.
Right, a pat on the back from somebody.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because some of it, and I think a great deal of it from my perspective is like, well, you can always count on me. I'm always going to come through. I'm always going to provide. And that should never be taken advantage or taken for granted. And I definitely felt that way. And so again, I know that's why I retreated into my profession.
Yeah. Okay. So you didn't see it coming, but did you in that moment go like, yeah, I think you're right? Or did you fight back,
I broke down. I was crying instantly. Like I was instantly heartbroken. I was instantly heartbroken because also we have a family, we have 2 young children,
2 kids
under the age of 10,
Yeah.
And it's like, again, there's no right time. Looking around in the last couple of years, looking around at other people, there's some people that got divorced when their kids are still in diapers. Other people that think it's a good idea and try to stay together for the kids through high school. And really, they just had their kids witness everything good, bad, and in between during that time.
It's just like, oh, cool. I get to observe the one relationship that I'm looking at every day is this. And they're miserable, and they wait until I move out to get divorced. That was mine. Did your parents stick together?
My parents stuck together. They never got divorced. That wasn't really on the plate. They had a good to decent marriage and a decent to good marriage, and I think for them it was also just a matter of like, man, is it really like reasonable to stay together for 40 years, 50 years?
It's a wild thing to contemplate.
Because it's like when we look back, and everyone tries to make this assertion, but it's true. It's like one thing about monogamy, but another thing, it's like, hey, did people live past 30?
No, right. Well, yeah, no, and those are thoughts I've entertained before. And here's a question that as I'm, going through my current relationship and kind of processing my past relationship, my past marriage through this show and otherwise, my therapist threw out at me, how long did you think you were going to live? When you were younger, how long did you think you were going to live, Rich?
I just really had no concept of mortality, and my elders lived really long times on both sides.
Okay, so for me, I thought I was going to die like way early. So and so like contemplating such a huge horizon like 30, 40 years, as you're talking about. I was just wondering. I wanted to throw that out there. It didn't go anywhere. We'll fix it in post. So. You were blindsided. You were heartbroken. How fast did it move after that? Like, were you told to move out? Was she all packed up? Had you talked to the kids?
No, it was interesting too. Like perpendicular to that was that I had been in therapy myself for a really long time, and it's
Mm.
something that I valued for my own personal health. And in therapy, you hope that your therapist is very honest with you, and you hope that more than anything that you can be honest with your therapist, right? Like
Mhm.
I was sharing with my friend the other day, it's like when we talk about looking yourself in the mirror, we're not speaking in metaphors. Like, can you literally look yourself in the mirror? How long can you keep eye contact with yourself?
Mhm.
It's like an exercise you should truly try because it carries over into the rest of your life. Like, can you keep it, very honest with yourself? Can you be true to yourself in all manners, right? And then so going back to the therapy thing, I knew that I was not in a healthy relationship.
Mm.
I knew that I was not feeling the reciprocity that I needed.
Mhm.
I knew that I wasn't being in the loved in the manner that I wanted to be loved in,
Mhm.
cared for the manner that I wanted to be cared in, and that reciprocity. I'm not really like a transactional person. It was just more like if the effort isn't being made, then I'm not going to be making any effort for you.
Right.
And then something people don't really talk enough about, and I would say this more anecdotally, it's like when you have children, then also you could just lose yourself in the children.
Yeah,
And we
100%.
know that tons of marriages turn into where it's like the mom loves the kids so much, it becomes their everything, and they're okay with that. And then
Yeah.
the dad is like, okay, well, as long as I provide
Mhm.
and show up for the big events, then I can go live my side life or whatever.
And I think that's a lesson uh, as somebody divorced with two kids. Um, yeah, I did. I felt kind of similarly not pushed to the side, just kind of a accessory, and um, it. I don't think that is, and I'm not fucking child psychologist. I'm not here to give this advice as somebody trained in this, but I don't think it's a good idea for both parents to say that our job is parent. I think their job is relationship.
Mm-hmm.
The parent's job is to model good behavior and healthy relationships and to love one another. And so when kids see that, like, oh, well, when I grow up and I become a mom or a dad, then kid is my job. And then they end up taking that into their relationships. They don't have the focus on the relationship, and then you just keep training children that kid is the job, not the relationship, not modeling healthy behaviors for a child. Anyway, is that kind of what you're saying? Did you feel that way, like pushed to the side, and that the kids were like everything, and you were just kind of like, well, I'll go fuck myself?
Yeah, that's very astute, and I think that's very universal truth for a lot of men. And some of it, let's be honest, it's we're raised. It's such an irony of life. We're raised by parents that don't have the tools to raise us,
Yeah.
right? Because they're, I was raised by boomers that are trying to teach me boomer values that have no place in today's society. I had a dad that was emotionally retarded, and it wasn't his fault. No one gave him the opportunity to learn how to process emotion and be emotive. I remember
Right.
one time as an adult, spilling my guts to my dad, and he asked me if I was drunk. And I was like, wow, because
Wow.
in your mind,
At least
you
he
can
didn't go like gay, like
I think he did after that.
yeah, he dropped
But like
it.
in his mind or his era, that's that's probably what men did. They probably
Right.
got drunk, and that's the only time they were allowed to express their
Share.
emotions
Yeah.
and share. And then, that's why like bars and men's clubs
Mm-hmm.
became such valued places in society, because in reality it was probably just fucking therapy sessions.
Right.
you know
Right.
but so I say that to say, you know I can understand that if there is either diagnosed or undiagnosed postpartum issues
Mm.
with my partner, I can say if whether or not there's like physical attributes that they no longer have,
Mm-hmm.
or they're not comfortable in their own skin. Yeah, these are all things that are real, but also things that have to be dealt with.
Yeah.
It's like with my own health too. It's like, hey, if I promise to stay healthy and be able to provide and be active in our children's lives and our lifestyle, it's like, you have to still maintain sexuality. You
Mm-hmm.
still have to be a sexual partner to your partner,
Yeah.
a romantic partner to your partner, and a friend to your partner. And if you're none of those things, now you're an accessory that provides a safe space and money, then what are you?
Yeah, you're a roommate.
You're a roommate.
You're splitting the rent, and yeah, you're in a roommate situation. I yeah, marriage. This this being a show about divorce, it's not to say that like divorce is the superior choice to marriage, but it is like I think you kind of nailed it on the head, like the sexuality of it. Marriage, if you boil it down beyond a religious idea of marriage,
Mhm.
then it is for procreation, having sex, consistent monogamous sexual partner, and child rearing. So those are the main purposes of it. And so if you remove one of those, then now you are just in a job together. You are employed.
For sure.
Anyway, so you got told that she wanted to separate, wanted a divorce. How long did it take for one or the other of you to move out and kind of decouple? And what was that process like? You're kind of making a face. It's an audio medium. Oh, okay. All right, we'll skip that then.
Just it's too muddied and it's
Oh.
too specific.
It's too. Oh,
Yeah.
it would dox you.
Yeah.
Fair. No. Thank you for sharing. That is totally valid.
But I can share this
Mhm.
was that there was no exit plan.
Okay.
So if you or your partner is you're never gonna be blindsided, right?
Sure.
But if you want to get divorced, you should think it through all the way through, and meaning divorce can it's not like Michael Scott declaring bankruptcy. Like you have to have some strong reasons, multiple, for divorce, although you don't have to explain yourself to anyone, but also an exit plan, meaning a timeline, an exit route, and then where are you going to land?
And where are the kids going to be? Do you have an idea schedule? How
Exactly
are you
that, because
where are they going to
our
sleep?
kids go to school, and they go to different schools, and the whole drop off pickup. That's why a lot of schools have the common calendar now, because year round makes it easier for drop off, pickup, and taking care of kids, right? And then so you have to think of all those factors. It's not as just about I don't love you anymore, and I don't want to see you anymore.
Right.
Because
Bye.
if you're lucky enough to get divorced without kids, then at least you're out of each other's lives. But when you have kids, you're gonna
be
have
stuck with the other person.
you're gonna in some way, shape, or form. And I've seen from other friends, like even if they live all the way across the country, forget child support and things of that nature. I'm just talking like they're still going to be a part of the decision making process. You're still going to be a part of holidays, things of that nature, and then kids have their own free will.
Yeah. They'll at some point get to decide: do I want to hang out more with Dad?
Yeah.
I want to. You brought up at the beginning, you're both representing yourselves in family court.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ. Bold decision, Cotton. Bold strategy. So how's that going? Because that terrifies the shit out of me. Have either one of you served the other one yet? Presumably, if you're in court.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's what I was alluding to earlier. It's like you can pay your way out of a lot of discomfort in life, right? You don't ever have to go to the DMV if you don't want to, right? You can make sure that you have everything on a subscription service. In this day and age, you don't even have to go to the grocery store anymore.
Right.
And the same is with divorce. Like you can hire lawyers and mediators and everyone in between to do everything for you. But because to save money and to save time, we did the DIY route. Also,
how's it going?
It's actually a good process, and I would say that
you're able to be agreeable. You're able to iron out custody.
Yeah, there's been no animosity. There's been a lot more honesty with each other throughout the entire process. Like not just saying, "Oh, this is what I want. This is what I want, and why." So, what's unfortunate is like with the separation. In our case, like before separation, there was a lot of animosity and a lot of mistrust, and then post separation, maybe because you don't care as much, but there's less animosity, and then you have to be honest with each other, or else you're gonna fuck up that whole situation of a DIY divorce court.
Yeah.
And then so it's like, this is what I want, and this and why I want to do it. And so the irony behind it is like, wow, if you had communicated from the beginning, maybe you wouldn't be in this boat. But there's no such thing as coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? There's only the present. This is what we're
Sorry.
dealing with now.
I'll edit that out.
This is what we're dealing with now, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and then so concentrating on the now, and then what the impact it has on the future, especially with children.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most important thing. And I'll say in our situation too, like dealing with the officials at the courthouses and everything, by being professional, by being articulate, we've been treated so well, because
Right.
by comparison, I mean, I've seen
You've been to family court, so
yeah,
you've seen the other
family
people that
court-
represent themselves.
family court is
The most depressing thing.
depressing and scary.
Yeah.
I've seen so many adult men with their parents,
Mm-hmm.
like holding their hand
Yeah.
while in line, essentially, like literally holding their hand. I've seen so many angry adult men and women,
The
not to,
reactions of people coming out of court. It's
Yeah.
such a heavy place. Like there's no winners in family court. Like I think that's important for a listener to understand. Like you think that your case is so virtuous or righteous, no matter what. Like there's really it's just bloody, and so when I hear that you're not going through it with lawyers, I just worry about those people that I see. You
No,
know,
for
and
sure.
I like you, Rich. I'd like to believe better. You know that you and your partner or ex partner are capable of more than that. But it's daunting, and
For sure.
it doesn't seem like that is the norm.
It is not, and I would like to believe that I'll stay in that rarefied air, and we can make it all the way to the end. But seeing that is also a good warning of like, this is why you keep it civil. So I'm not saying oh, this is how it's going to be eventually. No, this is why you keep it civil throughout the whole process, and that's been very helpful.
So it's you've been separated for 1.5 years. Is there any estimated time as to when things might be finalized here? How long's the process taken so far?
The initial process was very quick to get
Get the ball rolling.
and but to also be like legally separated
Oh, sure.
was less than 8 months.
Okay.
And even with the DIY process, you can get this all done very quickly with lawyers, to be honest, especially when it's amicable.
Yeah.
Like in our case, like even though we're in California, where everything is split down the middle, what's mine is mine, what's hers is hers, and we have a good understanding of that. And also, it's like in terms of providing for the children, it's also just like 50-50 towards that as best as we can. So, like, again, and I feel like I'm dealing with a rational person after the fact,
Because during the marriage,
they probably
it was
feel
getting
that
less
they probably feel the same way,
Right.
and that's fine, and if we can keep it there, I hope we can. And I would want to get this ball rolling again, and just make sure that we can have the trust to divorce and know that whatever comes out after the fact, we're not cutting ties, we're just
Right.
getting divorced.
Yeah.
Like I fully understand that I need to provide for my children, and the courts would get involved if I didn't.
Correct. Boy, howdy.
And vice versa.
Yeah. So okay. Thank you for walking me through that. I do want to point out that without lawyers being involved, me and my ex-wife were able to get divorced without lawyers. Mediators. I want to put that
Mediators,
out to
yeah.
the listener. The mediators are much more affordable. They are, they have a judge that oversees them. And so if you can come to an agreement in person with your ex and iron out some of those big details, and then a mediator can help draw up the marital settlement agreement, maybe pay an attorney to review it, make sure you're not getting yourself in hot water. Just want to put that out there as a resource. It's a good way to go about things. So as you're going through this separation, 1.5 years now, just being solo rich. All right. What's the custody look like?
Custody, basically, it's as much as I can give. So,
Given your work schedule.
yeah, given the
and
work schedule.
Yeah.
And, again, it's like the values that led to this are like the values that are the benefit to both of us right now, right? Meaning financially. But then, um, I want their mother to have primary custody because I want to keep the siblings together. A much more, the mother has a much less hectic lifestyle and work schedule. So I like the idea of that. And just being honest, what makes me successful and what makes me be able to provide is the fact that I don't have a traditional job that I have to
9 to 5,
travel a
punch in,
lot.
punch out.
I have to do a lot of things in other countries and other towns, and I wouldn't be able to provide at the level that I do if I don't have the freedom to do that.
Sure.
And that's to everybody's benefit.
Yeah. Okay. So also being separated for 1.5 years, have you, what kind of, I like to ask this of guests, have you found yourself in any healthy or unhealthy kind of coping mechanisms as you kind of process the divorce, right? You say you go to a therapist, which is that going well? Are you dealing a lot with the divorce there?
Yeah, therapy's great, and I've been doing it for years, and more than anything, like whether you believe in therapy or not, I can tell you this: just saying things out loud gives you an opportunity to hear yourself. Having to articulate yourself and put into words how you feel, that at the lowest level is what therapy can bring to the table. And then at the highest level, like I said, if you can truly be honest with yourself and you have a therapist that knows you, knows your situation, and they can only do that if you're being honest with them. If you're painting this picture of
Don't spend money to lie.
Yeah, don't spend money to lie. If you're painting this picture of who you aren't, they already know. You're probably going to get dropped by your therapist anyway. Yeah. And if they don't drop you, then they're just a vampire.
There's this term I heard used, and in my earlier therapy journeys, I feel like I felt like it was attacking me directly. This idea of a vulnerability sacrificial lamb, where you're giving the appearance that like, oh well, here's something, I'm being vulnerable and I'm talking about this and I'm giving it to you, but really there's like heavier shit that you do not want to address, right? That you do not want to talk about with your therapist and so on. So yeah, don't waste a bunch of money to lie to somebody and then never get through your shit. So that's one healthy coping mechanism. Have you taken to hard drugs? No. Fast women? No, I don't. I mean, like, there's good and bad coping mechanisms, and we all go through phases.
I mean, what's hard drugs to you is probably a Saturday to me.
Hey ho!
But of course, I don't want to say of course because that makes it like it's universal truth. But you're gonna start looking for answers, and you're gonna probably look for answers in places you have never looked for them before. And then so for therapy to have already been there, that was a real saving grace for me. Selfishly being untethered, and having slightly more free time than before, allowed me to hit the gym in a way that was more meaningful, allowed me to pursue fighting again, allowed me to pursue like water sports and things of that nature, things that I didn't have time to do. Right. So that's selfishly and honestly, that can be a benefit.
That's self-care. That's not selfish.
Yeah, but I'm saying like, well, now you're freed up. So if you have time freed up, don't just waste it. Laying on the couch watching The Office for the 40th time. Right. Like use your time wisely.
Yeah.
I was drinking heavily for a while there, and then a good friend of mine turned me on to alternative substances for that, and microdosing works.
Psychedelic in nature. Yeah.
And
we've had guests on that had real breakthroughs post-divorce with DMT, other what was the ayahuasca. Those kind of things,
and I do want to concentrate on that for a little bit because, because before that, I would say that I have taken every drug under the sun. I've I've imbibed on every liquor known to man.
And that's just this afternoon.
Hey-o.
Ta-dum.
And because with the circles that I keep, the money that I have and the opportunities that I have, like there's nothing that I've never had access to. And guess what? Who cares? Because you don't find happiness in any of that. Now, you do find the experience enjoyable, but at the end of the day, that's fleeting because you're going to be chasing those things. And it's like, okay, I've done that. And I find that getting women and having sex is not difficult. It's relationships are difficult. Having, actual intimacy is difficult.
Yeah.
So, and right now I'm still having that difficulty. And it comes with trust. I don't want to be hurt. Also, I don't want to hurt anyone, and I'll put a pin in that. So going back to the microdosing of psychedelics, when I've been doing that for quite some time now, post divorce, and the desire to drink has really leveled. The desire to overeat has really leveled. The desire for drugs has really leveled. And it's like, more than anything, when I say leveled, it means like it's there. I know I can get those things if I wanted them, but there's nothing pulling to me. Like the only way I can explain it to other people would be like, imagine if you're really hungry, but you're really hungry for drugs, or you're really hungry for booze, or you're really hungry for like one food item that you wanted to binge. Because maybe people have never been down that path. They've never had to face that demon. Now, but everyone's been hungry.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So over the course of a year and a half of doing the microdosing, I was also able to do a full ego death, which is...
You went big.
Yeah, I went big. Had a great shaman with me. Was
it mushrooms or ayahuasca? Or?
It was mushrooms, psilocybin. And, during that trip, it was a several hour trip, number one, the shaman was there walking me through it, keeping me safe, making sure I was hydrated and fed and all those things. But also, was there saying affirmations with me, helping me to understand what was happening. They could see what I was seeing somehow, which was really interesting. And not even like the power of persuasion. No, it's like a good example was like I was looking at the ground and almost in a panic. And then, this person was like, "Hey, you see the ground breathing. That's what you're witnessing right now." And so on and so forth. And other things that I won't share because they're very personal to me.
Sure.
And my own experience, and I don't want to muddy the waters for anyone else that may go down that path someday. But one of the takeaways, and I'll say this just real quick, you're going to have a lot of breakthroughs if you go down that path.
Right.
And almost to the point where like you're entering a different realm. And you'll have these great, amazing breakthroughs and epiphanies. You don't get to take them all back with you.
Sure.
But if you're lucky enough to take something back with you, and I was lucky enough to take a couple epiphanies back with me. And then one of the epiphanies, there's two epiphanies that I was able to take back with me that pertain to my family relationship with my nuclear family and with my wife. And one was the honesty of not sharing with them that we were all on the same path. So as I was saying earlier, I lost myself in my profession, lost myself in providing for them, and maybe working too much or being gone too much. I should have let them know that my trajectory was their trajectory. No matter how high Icarus flew, you were going to be with Icarus. No matter what my trajectory was, you were going to be with me.
Okay.
And then so that is my one woulda, coulda, shoulda. If I had shared that with,
right,
this is all in service of you and for you and us.
Right.
But I say this, and this is going to sound narcissistic, and I've had this conversation many times. If I don't take care of me and I don't focus on me and what I have to accomplish, how can I provide for you?
Oh, it's
impossible.
Undoable. Yeah.
And then the other takeaway that I had, the other epiphany that I had, so one, share with the people your plans and how they are part of your plans. And then the other
good.
And then the other epiphany that I had that day was also, and I won't get emotional because I've already come to terms with this myself, but I am too much for people. you know, and that's part of who I am and what's made me great, and I will never stop being who I am.
Right.
But also I look at the divorce and look at the separation and an eventual divorce and the the breaking up of the family unit
Yeah.
also as a blessing. I should not I should not I just cannot expose myself to people for that long. I'm a lot,
Okay.
like, meaning like I have high standards.
Mm.
I call you out on your shit. I want to be serious. I want to get to the bottom of things.
Uh-huh.
You can't do that every day to people, and you can't do that every day to kids.
Interesting.
But that's who I am and how I am, and I can't stop it.
Interesting. Well, we've got puppies on cables. If the listener hears a little rattling, it's very adorable. But
You should just do a YouTube video on that. You get a lot more clicks.
yeah,
Puppies on cables.
Divorced guys talking to puppies, staring at puppies. So with the idea that you can't change that, this kind of leads into another question I often ask. You know, going through coping mechanisms, how are you going to make sure that you don't end up in the same situation, right? So that the next big relationship you pursue doesn't end up this way. Like, what are the things that you know not to repeat? Because I hear you say, like, well, I'm not fixing this. You know, like I'm incorrigible, and I'm like, I don't know if I believe that about you, Rich. Like, but I'm curious, how are you going to make sure not to fall into this again?
Yeah, for sure. I think you know, anyone coming out of a relationship, a long-term relationship, like I said already, it's like, yeah, you can have access to whatever it is that brings you pleasure, right? So it's like, yeah, I can have sex with women, I can date women, I can get drugs, I can get alcohol. Those things are there, but you have the wherewithal to understand that that's fleeting, right?
Okay.
And then so what's not fleeting, what is eternal? You are eternal, right? Like, you're going to deal with yourself forever.
Mm-hmm.
And then so when I say, like, that, just how you said I'm incorrigible, it's not so much that, like, I'm okay with me being that way with myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know if I need to hold everyone to my standard. It's
Mm-hmm.
not fair to hold others to your own standard. You can hold yourself to your own standard. Like, I can't give you advice. I can give you my perception, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's the same thing with, like, trying to raise children or be in a relationship. I can only hold myself to my standard. I'm gonna go crazy or be viewed as angry if I try to hold you to your standard, or even controlling, right?
Right.
But moving forward, you know, I would say on the surface level, you know, honesty is the best policy.
Okay.
I think it's just modern relationships, as instead of being dishonest, it's more of a omission, like, you know, dishonesty through omission,
Sure.
not giving the whole story. And again, I think that kind of ties back to what's happening with social media, right? It's dishonesty through omission, because you are constantly sharing on social media, but you're not giving the whole story.
100%.
Right? And even in the positive, right? When you see, like, I always get the perspective of sharing people, like, hey, this guy's a overnight success, but 30 years in the making.
Right.
You know, like, yeah, you see this thing that finally worked for this person, but I've known them for 20 years. In fact, they were a graphic designer for this company for 20 years. And now they've finally, after 20 years of saving money, gone out on their own, and wow, their thing hit. Well, because they've been working on it for 20 years,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
And so going forward, it's like, I would like to get into a relationship with someone that I can be honest with, and genuinely myself, not ever have to suppress myself, dampen myself, or turn myself down. And I would want the same for them.
And you feel like you're in a place where you understand my standards aren't everybody's standards, right?
Totally.
And that wouldn't be pushed on somebody else.
Oh, totally. And I see that every day now too, where it's like, you know, I have a small circle of friends, and even with us, it's like, it's not a have to. It's never a have to. It's like as much as you can handle me or as much as I can handle you.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you need to disappear for a while and you don't even want to respond to a text, that's fine. But that's also like maturity, right? We all have
man.
we have friends
We're
that
adults.
yeah, we're all adults.
Shit gets like in the way. Life is emergent. If you have kids, like you're just not gonna remember to get back on every text or whatever the fuck.
For sure. Or like it's such a common thing now. It's like you read a text and you reply in your head.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I need to circle back on that. Never circles back.
Put a pin in that. I said that already like twice today in this podcast.
It's embarrassing, really. I was going to edit out the second one. No, I'm just kidding. Speaking of friends, you keep the circle tight.
Mm-hmm.
What happened during the divorce? Did you find people taking sides? Did you have a lot of friends that were like, that fucking clown, you should have left him long ago? Like anything like that?
No, I think most people were surprised, and we also
like me.
Yeah, and also we kept it very small, in terms of like letting people. It wasn't like a dramatic announcement. We let people know personally, and then for me, like I would say there was more of it wasn't really premeditated. It just happened that way, and but I could see that my partner wanted to keep it private.
Sure.
And why not? But because you don't need to. Not everything needs to have a gender reveal party,
right?
and also then this when you separate or divorce, you do see who your real friends are, and I don't mean in terms of side taking or like, oh, I always knew you were a rat. I mean, it's like, okay, who are the people that actually need to know about this?
Right.
Who are the people that participate in their lives?
Mm-hmm.
Who are the people that participate in our children's lives? And other than that, then you can really be like, huh, okay, they'll find out eventually, or just through happen chance of conversation. But everyone else, like, there doesn't need to be a gender reveal party for it.
No. So you don't need to have a big special Facebook banner that says we're divorced in like Fortnite font or something around the bottom.
For sure. No phantom tax here.
All right, it's going to turn into a brain rot exclusive podcast.
Skibbity.
No, my children, they're here. Okay. We're doing pretty good. We're cranking, man. Rich, it's been good. So I want to know, you're still going through it.
Yeah.
What big piece of advice have you not touched on that you would like to share with a listener who is looking at embarking on this path?
Okay, I would say through therapy, and I'm not trying to, what's the word here? I'm not trying to unfairly, okay, go back. Like through therapy, you can get a lot of tools, right?
Sure.
And one of those tools is journaling. I think people should journal,
I like
and I'll be very honest with you. Part of journaling can help you, with your day-to-day life to just again articulate how you feel. But also journaling, you should time and date stamp that, because an overused term is gaslighting, right? But let's call it what it is. It's lying. It's lying, and you will find yourself being gaslit during this process because you're relying on each other's memories. And then, so I'm not saying it's necessarily active gaslighting.
Okay.
But it's like, hey,
is that how that went down? Is that what I said?
Yeah. So it's going to be, the memory is a perception of something that happened a long time ago. So maybe you could help yourself by journaling. Journal your past, journal your present, but then going forward, like,
I like the therapeutic component and the legal component
of
it.
Yeah, and that's, so I was trying to find the right words because I'm not trying to backdoor the legal component, but that I'm being very honest, that is a great tangible benefit of journaling. But the emotional benefit of journaling is, of course, like you're getting it all off your chest, and the rest is like, hey, I'm not crazy. This is how it went down.
Right.
Right.
Another benefit of journaling is that if say you're going to become a Supreme Court justice and somebody accuses you of rape, you can point to a day on the calendar and say, I was drinking beer. It's on my calendar.
Yeah.
It's I like
how angry he got. It showed his composure during that time. And he's definitely someone who should be able to vote about reproductive rights.
Absolutely. Put him in charge of more shit. Anyway, this conversation. I just couldn't resist the journaling as a legal tool to point out
The crazy
a
thing
calendar
is,
that says
we're
drink
both
beer.
Reagan conservatives, right? We're both. No, I was kidding.
When you get down to it, we're pretty anarcho-capitalist pigs. Yeah. So that's good. Any other pointers after I interrupted you? So journaling is great. I think that.
Yeah.
Can I share? I want to share my journaling experience.
Please do, Will.
Because I think an important component of journaling is to go back and read what you wrote. I found myself horrified at some of the thoughts that I was capable of having, and at some of the ways that I was thinking, and I'm just like, God damn, like you thought things were going well, you thought everything was kind of riding smooth, and you were in the prime of life or whatever, and you were a real piece of shit to like a lot of people, and I can't believe this is the kind of person you were, right? So like going back and really kind of being honest with yourself and being able to see that it's not an opportunity you get a whole lot. You said things to people, you don't remember them, but when you can go back and read that this is what I thought, this is what I said, fuck, it can be eye-opening, and take those opportunities to, really I process the shame, process the bad parts of that, but also like give yourself a pat on the back. You're not that person anymore. You can do better. Anyway, so that's my journaling journey. Anything else on your big tips for listeners?
Yeah, I think philosophically too, I've really learned that the present is what matters the most, right? Like if you dwell in the past of like, again, the would have, could have, should have, there was a bunch of opportunities to save your marriage, but you just didn't know it.
Right.
And so the focusing on the past, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's like, if only I'd done that. You didn't, because you didn't know it in the time. And then also focusing on the future, you're just going to go crazy, because who has ever made a plan that has come to fruition 100% in the way that they designed it?
Yeah.
So what's the takeaway? Just concentrate on the very present. So like, if you're upset that you're not exercising enough, exercise. If you're upset that you're not saving money enough, save money. If you're upset that you're not traveling enough, travel. Even if it means like going to North County as opposed to down the street, like get out of your comfort zone is what I'm saying, because your comfort zone is your day to day. And again, I know that some of that is a benefit of being less entangled with the duties of being a husband and a father, but also that's also the clarity that's been afforded to me with that opportunity.
Sure. Yeah, you get to have those moments and go like, oh, I want to do this with my time.
Yeah. This is your perspective is literally shifted. And it's so easy though just to waste time, like anyone, right? It's so easy, especially nowadays. You got that little robot in your computer, a little robot computer pocket, right? What's that called? An iPhone. And you
God, Bill Maher. Bill Maher's made his way into the studio. Everybody, oh no.
A lot of people.
Oh God, Rich, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate your vulnerability and your story. It sounds like you're in a good place, and that you and your partner are amicable, which envious. It is impressive. As we discussed, family court, going pro se, which is the terminology when you represent yourself in court, is ugly typically. And so congrats on getting through this.
I will say this, in all fairness, we're both highly educated, so that helps a lot.
Okay.
And
go ahead and brag a little bit.
And one of us has no shame, and the other one is embarrassed easily. So I think with all those factors combined, you get that unicorn of amicable divorce.
Like, we don't want to look like idiots in front of a fucking judge and a courtroom of other idiots, miserable people. To be honest,
yeah. I'll say this about one more. I guess I want to say it.
Do it.
Oh my God.
Go off, King.
The amount of shit talking amongst women at divorce court is insane.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, like every time I've ever been there, you just get a couple of women together and they just start getting just
more and more heated up.
commiserating.
Yeah.
Commiserating and then fired up. And what's dangerous about that is that they're all waiting to go see a judge.
Yeah, now you're all worked up, and it's like the judge doesn't want to hear your emotion.
They don't
at all. They don't want to know about emotions. They want to know numbers. They want to know dates.
They don't. When you go to, no matter who you talk to, nobody asks you why.
No,
nobody's going to ask you why in divorce court. There's no why. That doesn't have any bearing.
Except my mediator, and I think I brought this up on a previous episode. My mediator looked at me and my ex and were like, "You guys seem to get along so well. Why are you getting divorced?" I'm like, "Could you just butt out
next?
Could you just butt out like a fucking minute? That is an inappropriate fucking move."
It is.
Anyway, I blast that mediator real quick.
For sure.
And on that note. Maybe we'll call it a wrap. Do you feel like you got the story?
I'm glad we sounded like angry women-hating men at the end. Just
important.
So everyone knows where we're coming from.
Really cap it off with that good misogyny.
We sounded way too level-headed up until that point.
Yeah, we sounded.
I'll tell you
like
one
real
more
decent
thing. I tell you what.
Don't you dare. Oh, Rich, it's been, thank you for sharing your story. It's been so long since we've caught up, and I really was curious, like, what the hell's going on with Rich? And, finding out where you've been, where the process is.
I'll share this with the listeners. When you reach my level of success, the only way you can catch up with your friends is by going on their podcast. So.
That's where we're at. Get on this level. Started from the bottom. Now we're on what's leaving and what's left.
Na 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 na.
Oh my God. All right. Well, I am William. This has been Rich. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of What's Leaving and What's Left. You have a great day. What's Leaving and What's Left is written, produced, and hosted by William. Nothing the host or guests say should be construed as legal or psychiatric advice, so please lawyer up and get therapy. Thank you so much for listening. Please continue to listen, like, subscribe, and share with a friend you believe may benefit from this story.